today we are going to talk about a conversational search experience built for Microsoft Teams with SPFx. This sample was added to SPFx sample gallery and was being developed by collaborating with Kunj also, who could not join today, but I am taking over the demo for him. Uh, Before we start, a little bit about myself. I am Siddharth Vaghasia. I am a Microsoft MVP and also Microsoft 365 consultant. I love to work on SharePoint, Teams app, Power Platform, etc. These are some of the social handles through which you would be able to connect with me. Then also I'd like to introduce my co-collaborator Kunj. He is also a technical consultant working around SharePoint Office 365, and he is also an active PNP contributor, wherein he also contributes to various samples, writes articles, blogs, etc. And these are some of the social handles through which you would be able to connect with him. So this is the link to the repo which we are going to talk about today. So what was the driving factor? The first thing was, with Teams usage and everything, and if we talk about a Teams channel, a typical Teams channel conversation, which it would be built for a particular project, we would see there would be so much of message passing which be one, or so much of conversation happening in a particular channel conversation, and it becomes sometimes difficult to find the right message within that conversation. And also it becomes difficult to scan and locate the relevant information there, right? Now, this was a idea which I got probably an year back or so, like how we can simplify the conversation which are available for us to quickly go and find something. And that is when I started exploring, and I started the web part with a very simple idea of displaying the conversation in the tabular view. And then what happened was I showed it to Kunj, and he came up with other idea of to enhance that particular web part to have a different kind of view. And that is where we kind of collaborated on this web part, and we were able to complete it, and we have submitted in the SPFX sample gallery. Now, these are some of the summaries or the features of what this web part would do. So first of all, this is an SPFX based web part, which is kind of enabled for a Teams tab, because it is a web part wherein whole functionality of the web part is dependent on a channel and its conversation. So it would only work within a channel conversation as in Teams tab. Okay. What it will do is it will basically display some of the newest conversation first of all on the top. So when we are talking about conversation, we are talking about the top level conversation which happens, and then you can deep dive into a specific reply within a specific conversation. Then you would have an option to navigate from directly to a specific message or within reply to the conversation. It means you would be able to directly go to that Teams post messages for you to reply or for you to refer that particular message, right? Then you would have different filters depending on what you want to use. You can filter it by the body search text. You can filter it by who has sent the message. You should filter able to filter it by mention, from and to wait, and with attachment. Okay, so these are some of the basic filters which we have implemented. So idea was to like sometimes you might remember that okay, this message was been sent by this guy or your colleague, but you might not be able to filter it based on who has sent that message, right? And if you at least that okay, I wanted to find all the messages sent by a particular user on so and so date, or if it that he has mentioned you can also filter it based on that, and typically search text also is available. Same way you will be able to apply all the same filters to the replies within that conversation. Then you have two types of options. That is what I said, tabular view, and then you have chat format view, which we will see in the demo. And there would be a legend icon on the message where the current user is mentioned. So if you are logged in with your account on the Teams tab, and you are doing that, what you would be able to do is you would be able to say icon saying that this message you have been mentioned. And of course, we have explored to use Graph Toolkit in SPFX based web part, right? So if anyone is interested on getting started of how to use SPFX based solution and enable it Microsoft Teams, these are the reference links through which you would be able to use it. The first one being a typical way of creating an SPFX web part and enabling it manually. But definitely, if you want, you can also use the Visual Team Studio toolkit for enabling or creating a Teams tab using SPFX. So second link is specific to that. With that, let's quickly go to the demo. So what I have done is I have kind of installed the solution, and plus I have also deployed the solution and added to a particular Teams channel conversation, and we created some sample channel conversation around it, right? So this is the channel which we are talking about, and this is the Teams tab SPFx. So at the top, what you get is you get a two kind of view, whether it would be a chat view, which is this, which we are seeing right now, and there would be a tabular view also where you would be able to see the conversation message in the tables, right? And then you have all the filters around it. Now, these are the top conversations which would be there. So if you go to the post and if you see most of the top level conversations which we are seeing right now is kind of displayed at the top. And to go into a particular detailed replies of that conversation, once you hover over it, you would be able to see an icon and you click on this view reply. That is where you would be able to see all the replies of that particular top level conversation which would happen. Okay. From here, of course, you would be able to go to that particular channel, that a particular message within the post itself so that you can reply, etc. Plus, wherever based on the current logged in user, if you are mentioned in that particular message, you would see an @ symbol so that you know that these are the messages where it was specifically targeted to you or you were mentioned in that message. Okay. Now, coming to the filters, if you see here, if I wanted to filter based on a particular user, like I wanted to just filter messages being sent by a particular user, if I click on apply, I would be only able to see that particular message. Then same way, you can also mention. It means you can also filter the messages where somebody else is mentioned. So if you know that you have sent a message and you have mentioned somebody, you click on mention, and if you can tap on apply, then it will come up with the message which is there. Now, other thing is, by default, what we are doing is we are not showing the HTML formatted message. What we are doing is we are keeping it as a simple text message and displaying it for general purpose, because the idea here was to find a conversation and then use the conversation message button to go to that message and find the context, etc. Right? Then you can also filter any messages which are with attachment. Okay. Plus, if you click on that attachment, you would be able to directly go to that attachment also. And of course, there is, from date and to date. So if you filter a message based on a particular from date to date, you would be able to filter that message, etc. Right? And also the body text messages. So if we say like weather, and if you will apply, you would only see the message which is there. So these are the basic filters which we thought would be useful for us to basically drive that conversation. Right? Now, the other thing is, once you go to the reply, once you go to a reply of a particular message, you will get similar functionality which is available wherein to, I don't know why this, yeah, okay. You will get similar functionality wherein you would be able to filter based on all the filters which are available for the messages also. And then there is that tabular view. So tabular view is where you would be able to directly find from in a simple formatted way, but in a way very much similar to what you are seeing when it was being sent, if you want to go to that message, etc. So this is a typical way to display the conversation in a simple way, so that if you wanted to find something, you would be able to use this web part to target to a particular channel conversation, and you would be able to kind of use this web part. We don't have an option to show which columns and to show to hide, but that is an idea which we can implement. But overall, you can kind of expand, collapse the columns which are available, which you can basically do it. Okay. Now, so this is everything about demo. What I'll do is I'll quickly go through demo of code walkthrough of the web part. Uh, First thing is, as I said, it is an SPFX based web part. So more or less what we are doing is how we are programming our SPFX web part. And what we are doing is we are using Graph API to basically get the conversations or the messages using Graph service client to get all the messages for that particular channel and display it. So initialization part, we are initializing Graph service, the Graph client and everything. Next is the main file wherein we have the state object, which would basically kind of hold all the variables which would be required to get the required functionality, depending on whether it is a chat message, filtered messages, next link, expanded message ID. So basically this is the typical state object which we are doing, which we are using. Then within the main component in the render method, this is where kind of all the components come together. So we have segregated the components between different functionalities. So header component is the one which is basically nothing but displaying the search conversation header and the grid and the tabular view icons which are there. Then you have filter component, which basically takes care of rendering this filter component here, which is there. And then depending on the view being selected, you have a message view and you have a table view component which is there. And this is where we are passing a typical data is being passed to that component to basically render it. So next I would go and see, next we will see some important messages like get teams messages. So what we are doing is we are using the teams kind of SDK to get the current context group ID and the channel ID. Now group ID would be basically the teams ID, and the channel ID would be the channel ID in which the current web part would be running. And then we have the graph service provider method, which we will see shortly. But to just get the messages and set the state object and use that state object to pass to the components which is available. Next, this is a separate method for get message replies, because the graph endpoint to get the message replies for a particular top level conversation is different, and you need to pass, or the endpoint is different, and also you need to pass the message ID inside which you need to get the reply. So this is a separate method, but very much similar. What you get is you have to pass the group ID, channel ID, but the extra thing you would pass is the selected message ID on which you are getting all the replies from. Next, this is the graph service provider class basically, and this is the class wherein we have all the methods which actually makes the graph API call using the graph client. The first one being the team slash channel ID and the messages, which will give us all the messages. We are getting top 45 messages, and then we have load more button below that, wherein once you will click on load more button, it will go and get another 45 messages by using the next click icon. This is just to kind of way of getting the latest messages and then kind of trying to find all other messages if you want to do it. Then this method is where you would be able to get the data based on the next URL. So if you are getting the second page, basically we use the next link which would be written in the response and use that to get the next set of data which is available. And then this is the get message replies, which would give us the messages replies based on the endpoint teams. You pass teams ID, channel, you pass channel ID, messages, and then the message ID, and then you say the replies, and which will give you all the replies which are available, right? Next thing is the component. So what we have is this is the message view component. Within message view component, in terms of the UI library which we are kind of utilizing here, is we are using React North Star to get the chat item kind of object to get the required look and feel, so that you don't have to develop that kind of similar experience. Then what we are doing is we are also using a read more and less, which is basically a React library, which is to kind of handle the read more, read less button on a particular content, which is very much easy to implement. We will see that. Now coming to the important component. Okay, so this is where we are converting the HTML text to the plain text, so that we don't have to take care of rendering the messages as it is, but rather than kind of displaying and using the inner text of the div element to just display the messages which is being displayed there, right? Now what you would now this is the main component method, wherein you have the chat component to display a particular chat. Within that there would be a chat item, and within that there would be a chat messages. This is how a typical React North Star chat components library is being used. You can we can use that. What it will do is it will basically kind of display the top level messages which is there, and then again below down it is very much similar, but that is where you would able to see all the replies to that particular messages, or you would see all the related messages there. Okay, and we are also using graph toolkit to basically use the person component to display who has sent these messages, etc., within the SPFx web part to get the required look and feel. So this is the message view component which is available, and then mention icon, of course everything is kind of available, and all the logic whether to display the mention icon and everything would be typically based on the filter of the mentioned user ID versus the current user ID's object ID, so that you know that that user has been mentioned in that particular messages or not, right? Now let's see the tabular view. So if I go to table view, Table view is also very much similar. It's just that we are using the detailed list view component from the Fluent UI to basically display the data in the tabular format. And what we are doing is we are overriding on render method of each of the columns to get the required look and feel, or to basically use certain properties to display whether it is a chat icon or whether it is a file, or to format the date time message, created date time messages, etc. And also to display the body content messages within the column itself. So this is how a typical tabular or the detailed list view control can be used, right? So overall, this is the base functionality or base code, which is basically taking care of implementation. A very on a summary level, what we are seeing is we are seeing that we are using Graph API to get the data. We are using Teams SDK context, Teams context within SPFx web part itself to get the current context, group ID, channel ID, and then we are making the Graph API call, and we're using the Graph API call to basically display the data in that format. And it makes more sense when you are using this web part within the Teams channel conversation, so that it can be used as in an extended feature of what is already available within Teams for you to kind of read in a way what you kind of read to do that. Okay. Last couple of points I wanted to highlight here is for Web API permission, because we are using channel messages, so we need this channel message read all permission to be applied for us to kind of use Graph API to get the channel messages. So this permission and the scope is important, which we specified in the package solution. And lastly, how do you enable this SPFX web part as in Teams tab? So for that, in the web part manifest.json file, what we do is in the supported host, we are specifying that the supported host for this web part is the Teams tab, and that is how it would be available. Now, once an SPFX solution is deployed to the app level catalog, I mean the tenant level app catalog, because you are using and you want to make it as in enable for as in the Teams tab, which would be available for user to install that within your Teams tab. What you would have to do is you have to make sure that once you have deployed the solution, you are basically deploying it to all the sites first of all, and also you are syncing it to the Teams. Okay, this option would be enabled. Probably it's just taking some time, but basically this is where it would be allow us to enable and make this tab or this web part available for user to be used within your Teams application within the tenant itself. Okay. This one, if you want to know about it, the links which I have shared in the reference link would help you, give you step-by-step reference on what and how you can basically enable your existing web part to be enabled for a Teams team. And depending on whether your web part is just for a single supported host, which is a Teams tab, or you wanted to also use it in your SharePoint, accordingly, you can use the SDKs which are available, and you would be able to kind of find whether your current web part is running within the Teams or whether it is running in the SharePoint. Okay, so yeah, so that's it from my side. Hopefully this web part would be also useful to the community, or it will give you idea on how to kind of extend it. That's it from my side. Over to you, Gary.
It was a fantastic demo, Siddharth. Yeah, I can see in the chat there's a few questions. So obviously people have seen some interest in what you've done here. A great example of the different technologies that you've used as well in this solution. I absolutely love the code tour that you've got as well to kind of guide us through this solution as well. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much for coming on to the call today and sharing with us.
Thank you, Gary. Oh. Definitely, I'll reach out the questions. I'll reply it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Perfect. Thank you.